All right.
All right.
Alsatian.
Alsatian.
Also.
Also.
Information is also available on women's health care. She sings beautifully and also plays the flute and piano. The system was not only complicated but also ineffective. My girlfriend was also called Helen.
Also ran.
Also ran.
10 months ago, he was just an also-ran for the Democratic nomination.
She is a fan of alt-folk and alt-country. She is a fan of alt-folk and alt-country.
Altar.
Altar.
A crucifix above the high altar. The victim was tied to a sacrificial altar.
Altar boy.
Altar boy.
Altarpiece.
Altarpiece.
Altar.
Altar.
Her face hadn't altered much over the years.
The city centre has altered beyond recognition.
Nothing can alter the fact that the refugees are our responsibility. She had the dress altered for the wedding.
Alteration.
Alteration.
If you make alterations to the Windows setup, save the new settings before closing.
Have you noticed any alteration in the patient's behaviour?
The King's Arms pub is to undergo extensive alterations.
Altercation.
Altercation.
They became involved in an altercation.
Alter ego.
Alter ego.
Gissing used his fictional alter ego to attack Victorian morals. Mrs. Reagan was widely regarded as the president's alter ego.
Alternate.
The service runs on alternate days. Alternate blue and red stripes. Arrange the leeks and noodles in alternate layers. The appointment of an alternate director. She alternated between outrage and sympathy. Periods of depression alternate with excited behavior. Twist your body, alternating right and left stretches.
Alternative.
Alternative.
Alternative approaches to learning. Have you any alternative suggestions? An alternative route is along the Via Union. Tucson's alternative radio station. Sources of alternative energy. Tolerance of alternative lifestyles. Acupuncture is widely used by practitioners of alternative medicine. Is there a viable alternative to the present system?
If payment is not received, legal action will be our only alternative.
I had no alternative but to report him to the police.
He quickly assessed the alternatives open to him.
Alternative lifestyle.
Alternative lifestyle.
Some people say schools need to teach tolerance of alternative lifestyles.
Alternatively.
Alternatively.
You can relax on the beach or alternatively visit the bustling town center.
Alternator.
Alternator.
Although.
Although.
Although in poor health, she continued to carry out her duties. We decided to take rooms in Longwood House, although we knew we could not really afford the rent. Although I can't help admiring the man's courage, I do not approve of his methods. You can copy down my answers, although I'm not sure they're right. No, this is my responsibility, although I appreciate your offer.
Altimeter.
Altimeter.
Altitude.
Altitude.
We're flying at an altitude of 40,000 feet. At high altitudes, it is difficult to get enough oxygen.
Alto. Alto.
An alto sax.
Altogether.
Altogether.
An old custom that has vanished altogether. Congress could ban the procession altogether. In Canada, the situation is altogether different. This latest problem is altogether more serious. I wasn't altogether happy about Mike staying over. The results were not altogether surprising. There were 5 people altogether. How much do I owe you altogether? Lots of sunshine, wonderful food, and amazing nightlife. Altogether a great vacation. Several of the men were parading around in the altogether.
Altruism.
Altruism.
Many choose to work in developing countries out of altruism.
Altruistic.
Altruistic.
Were his motives entirely altruistic?
Alum.
Alum.
A Crawford High alum.
Aluminium.
Aluminium.
Recycled aluminium cans.
Alumna.
Alumna.
Alumni.
Alumni.
The University Alumni Association.
Alumnus.
Alumnus.
Alveolar.
Alveolar.
Always.
Always.
Always lock your bicycle to something secure.
She'd always assumed that Gabriel was a girl's name.
He hadn't always been a butler. I've always wanted to go to Paris. I'll always remember that day. That woman next door's always complaining.
We'll leave on Tuesday, always assuming the car's repaired by then.
The truth, as always, is more complicated. As always, Deborah was the last to arrive. You could always try ringing again. If you can't get it locally, there's always the internet. You always were a stubborn creature. He's a troublemaker, always was and always will be.
Always on.
Always on. An always-on internet connection.
Alzheimer's disease.
Alzheimer's disease.
AM. Work starts at 9 a.m. AM.
Am. Am.
The AMA.
AMA.
Amalgam.
Amalgam.
An amalgam of different styles.
Amalgamate.
Amalgamate.
The agency is expected to amalgamate with the National Rivers Authority. Stir until the ingredients are amalgamated. The editors will amalgamate all the information into one article. An amalgamation between 2 companies.
Amanuensis.
Amanuensis.
Amass.
Amass.
For 25 years, Darwin amassed evidence to support his theories. He amassed a fortune after the war.
Amateur.
A gifted amateur. Michelson won his first major golf tournament while still an amateur.
You English are a bunch of amateurs when it comes to romance.
Well-meaning amateurism.
An amateur golfer.
Amateur dramatics. It was a very amateur performance.
Amateurish.
His paintings are rather amateurish.
Amatory.
Amatory.
Amaze.
Amaze.
Dave amazed his friends by suddenly getting married. It still amazes me how much she has improved. It never ceased to amaze him that women were attracted to Sam. It never ceased to amaze him that women were attracted to Sam.
Amazed.
Amazed.
I'm amazed you've never heard of the Rolling Stones.
You'd be amazed how much money you can save.
We were absolutely amazed at his rapid recovery. Visitors are often amazed to discover how little the town has changed.
Amazement.
Amazement.
Ralph gasped in amazement. To everyone's amazement, the goal was disallowed.
Amazing.
Amazing.
He's an amazing player to watch. An amazing bargain. It's amazing how often you see drivers using mobile phones. These shoes were amazingly cheap.
Amazon. Amazon. Amazon.com. Amazon.
Ambassador.
Ambassador.
The U.S. ambassador to Spain. He has made some good films, and he is a good ambassador for the industry. Relations at ambassadorial level.
Amber.
Amber.
An amber necklace.
Ambience.
Ambience.
Ambidextrous.
Ambidextrous.
Ambience.
Ambience.
The restaurant's new owners have created a welcoming ambience.
Ambient.
Ambient.
Ambient advertising. Ambient advertising.
Ambiguity.
Ambiguity.
There was an element of ambiguity in the president's reply. Legal ambiguities.
Ambiguous.
Ambiguous.
The language in the minister's statement is highly ambiguous.
His role in the affair is ambiguous. The legislation had been ambiguously worded.
Ambit.
Ambit.
Areas falling within the ambit of our research.
Ambition.
Ambition.
She had always had an ambition to be a pilot. She had always had an ambition to be a pilot. An injury ended his ambitions of becoming a professional footballer. He was young and full of ambition. I have no ambition to go back there again.
Ambitious.
Ambitious.
Alfred was intensely ambitious, obsessed with the idea of becoming rich. Mothers who are highly ambitious for their children. An ambitious engineering project. An overambitious health reform program.
Ambivalent.
Ambivalent.
We are both somewhat ambivalent about having a child. O'Neill had a genuine ambivalence toward U.S. involvement in the war.
Amble.
Amble.
An old man came out and ambled over for a chat. A pleasant amble by the river.
Ambrosia.
Ambrosia.
Ambulance.
Ambulance.
The ambulance service. The ambulance crew removed him from the wreckage.
The ambulance driver.
Mike had to be taken by ambulance to hospital. Do you think we need to call an ambulance?
Ambulance chaser.
Ambulance chaser.
Ambush.
Ambush.
The soldiers were killed in an ambush. In winter, the danger of ambush is much reduced. Armed police lay in ambush behind the hedge. Everybody thought our train would be ambushed, but we got out safely.
Amoeba.
Amoeba.
Ameliorate.
Ameliorate.
It is not clear what can be done to ameliorate the situation.
Amen.
Amen.
Blessed be the Lord. Amen. McAllister murmured a fervent amen. I think we can close the meeting now. Amen to that.
Amenable.
Amenable.
She was always a very amenable child. Young people are more amenable than older citizens to the idea of immigration. Such conditions may be amenable to medical intervention.
Amend.
Amend.
The law was amended to include women. The defendant later amended his evidence. Steve stole it, or rather borrowed it, he amended. An amended version.
Amendment.
Amendment.
Constitutional amendments. An amendment to the resolution.
Amends.
Amends.
He seized the chance to make amends for his behavior.
Amenity.
Amenity.
The hotel is in the city centre, close to shops and local amenities.
Houses that lack basic amenities.
Amerasian.
Amerasian.
American.
American.
Her mother is American. A famous American writer.
American.
Americana.
Americana.
1940s Americana.
The American dream.
The American dream.
American football.
American football.
American Indian.
American Indian.
Americanism.
Americanism.
Americanize.
Americanize.
The Americanization of youth culture.
The American League.
American League.
Americano. Americano. The American way.
The American way.
The America's Cup.
America's Cup.
America the Beautiful.
America the Beautiful.
Amethyst.
Amethyst.
Amiable.
Amiable.
The driver was an amiable young man. She was in an amiable mood.
Amicable.
Amicable.
Their relationship hasn't always been amicable. The two parties have reached an amicable settlement. In the end, the matter was resolved amicably.
Amid.
Amid.
The dollar has fallen in value amid rumors of weakness in the U.S. economy. Demonstrators ripped up the national flag amid shouts of "Death to the tyrants!" He sat amid the trees.
Amidships.
Amidships.
Amidst.
Amidst.
A light that shines amidst the darkness.
Amino acid.
Amino acid.
Amiss.
Amiss.
Elsa continued, as if nothing was amiss. There's something amiss in their relationship.
A cup of tea wouldn't go amiss. Don't take it amiss. I was just teasing.
Amity.
Amity.
A spirit of perfect amity.
Amateur.
Amateur.
Ammo.
Ammo.
Ammonia.
Ammonia.
Ammonite.
Ammonite.
Ammunition.
Ammunition.
His mistakes provided political opponents with even more ammunition.
Amnesia.
Amnesia.
Amnesty.
Amnesty.
The government granted an amnesty for all former terrorists. An amnesty on illegal handguns.
Amniocentesis.
Amniocentesis.
Amniotic fluid.
Amniotic fluid.
Amoeba.
Amoeba.
Amok.
Amok.
Drunken troops ran amok in the town. An age in which global capitalism has run amok.
Among.
Among.
The girl quickly disappeared among the crowd. I could hear voices coming from somewhere among the bushes. We walked among the chestnut woods on the mountain slopes. She began rummaging among the books on her desk. Jim relaxed, knowing he was among friends. The problem is causing widespread concern among scientists. The general opinion among police officers was that the law should be tightened.
The changes will mean 7,000 job losses among railway workers. She was the eldest among them.
Innocent civilians were among the casualties. My grandfather had, among his possessions, a portrait by Matisse. Representatives were chosen by the students from among themselves. At the meeting they discussed, among other things, recent events in Japan. A father's property was divided among his heirs. The Allies found it hard to agree among themselves.
Amoral.
Amoral.
A completely amoral person.
Amorous.
Amorous.
She resisted his amorous advances. He was always boasting about his amorous adventures.
Amorphous.
Amorphous.
An amorphous mass of twisted metal.
Amortize.
Amortize.
Amount.
Amount.
They spent equal amounts of time in California and New York. A considerable amount of money. A tiny amount of dirt. Please pay the full amount by the end of the month. Her case has attracted an enormous amount of public sympathy. Dinah encountered a fair amount of envy among her colleagues. No amount of persuasion could make her change her mind. The school has any amount of resources and equipment. Time lost through illness amounted to 1,357 working days. The court's decision amounts to a not guilty verdict. Ultimately, their ideas amount to the same thing. Her academic achievements don't amount to much. Jim's never going to amount to much.
Amour.
Amour.
Amp.
Amp.
A 3-amp fuse.
Ampersand.
Ampersand.
Mills and Boone.
Amphetamine.
Amphetamine.
Amphibian.
Amphibian.
Amphibious.
Amphibious.
Amphibious creatures.
Amphitheatre.
Amphitheater.
Amphora.
Amphora.
Ample.
Ample.
You'll have ample time for questions later. There is ample evidence that climate patterns are changing. She found ample room for her things in the wardrobe. An ample bosom. Recent U.S. history has amply demonstrated the risks of foreign intervention.
Amplifier.
Amplifier.
Amplify.
Amplify.
An amplified guitar. These stories only amplified her fears. Would you care to amplify that remark?
Amplitude.
Amplitude.
Ampoule.
Ampule.
Amputate.
Amputate.
2 of her toes were amputated because of frostbite.
Amputee.
Amputee.
Amuck.
Amuck.
Amulet.
Amulet.
Amuse.
Amuse.
He made funny faces to amuse the children. The question seemed to amuse him in some way.
It amused me to think back to my life in London.
Doing jigsaws would amuse Amy for hours on end. The kids amused themselves playing hide and seek.
Amused.
Amused.
Ellen seemed amused by the whole situation. I could see she was highly amused. The man looked a little amused. He won't be very amused when he finds out what's happened to his garden. There were puzzles and games to keep the children amused.
Amusement.
Amusement.
Her eyes sparkled with amusement. She looked at him in amusement. Steve couldn't hide his amusement. They were dancing and singing in the car, much to the amusement of passers-by. The cats are a constant source of amusement to us. Childhood amusements. The kids can ride on the amusements. What do you do for amusement in this town?
Amusement arcade.
Amusement arcade.
Amusement park.
Amusement park.
Amusing.
Amusing.
I don't find his jokes at all amusing. A highly amusing film. The book is full of amusing stories about his childhood. A mildly amusing spectacle.
Anne.
Anne.
An orange. An X-ray.
An.
Anne.
Anarchy.
Anoxia. Suburban. Jamesian. A historian.
Anna.
Americana.
Anabolic steroid.
Anabolic steroid. Anabolic steroid.
Anachronism.
Anachronism.
The monarchy is something of an anachronism these days. The film is full of anachronisms. His painting style was seen as outdated and anachronistic.
Anaconda.
Anaconda.
Anemia.
Anemia.
Anemic.
Anemic.
His anemic-looking face. An anemic first novel.
Anaerobic.
Anaerobic.
Anaerobic bacteria. Anaerobic fermentation.
Anesthesia.
Anesthesia.
Anesthetic.
Anesthetic.
The operation will have to be done under anaesthetic. Eye surgery is often performed using a local anaesthetic. You will need to have a general anaesthetic. Anaesthetic drugs.
Anesthetist.
Anesthetist.
Anesthetize.
Anesthetize.
Anagram.
Anagram.
Silent is an anagram of listen.
Anal.
Anal.
Don't be so anal.
Analgesia.
Analgesia.
Analgesic.
Analgesic.
Aspirin is a popular analgesic. Drugs that have an analgesic effect on ulcers.
Analogous.
Analogous.
The report's findings are analogous with our own.
Analog.
Analog.
Analogy.
Analogy.
Analogies between human and animal behavior.
She drew an analogy between childbirth and the creative process. Dr. Wood explained the movement of light by analogy with the movement of water.
Analyze.
Analyze.
She still needs to analyze the data. You need to sit down and analyze why you feel so upset. Joe had never tried to analyze their relationship. The cell samples are analyzed by a lab.